There are people who don't need power in their hands, yet their presence alone is enough to transform an entire empire. Wallis Simpson was one of those people. An American woman, ordinary, without title, without lineage. So, why was she the one who made a king of England walk away from his throne? This story isn't just about love, it's about character, choice, and the price of being different. In 1936, King Edward VIII faced a decision hardly anyone could imagine. Keep the crown or keep the woman he loved. The church opposed, the government opposed, the royal family opposed, and the entire empire opposed. Yet in the end, he still chose Wallis. To understand why, we must look deeper into these two individuals and into the moment when private emotion collided with the weight of history. Wallis was not beautiful by Hollywood standards. She was not wealthy, not aristocratic, and not the kind of woman society considered acceptable at the time. But she possessed something that very few women of her era had. First, a natural, effortless confidence. Not excessive, not loud. A confidence born from knowing her own value. Second, the ability to observe people. Wallis could read emotions, insecurities, and hidden desires beneath someone's surface, especially powerful men. Third, emotional control. While society expected women to be soft and fragile, Wallis was calm, direct, and rarely revealed vulnerability. These traits did not create obvious power, but they created a silent magnetism, a kind of presence that could make even the strongest men stop and listen. Before Wallis, Edward VIII was the idol of Britain, handsome, intelligent, modern, adored by the public. But behind that image, he was a deeply insecure man. Edward disliked ceremony. He disliked responsibility. He disliked the rigid structures of the monarchy. And deep inside, he didn't want to be king. He needed someone who could speak to him as a human being, not as a national symbol. And Wallis did exactly that. She didn't worship him. She didn't fear him. She didn't treat him like a monarch. She made him feel ordinary. And that was what he lacked most. Edward didn't just love Wallis. He found in her something the throne could never give him: emotional freedom. In 1936, Edward VIII became king. But only months later, he announced his wish to marry Wallis Simpson, a twice-divorced American woman. For the Church of England, it was unacceptable. For the government, it threatened national credibility. For the royal family, it was a humiliation. And for the people, it became the first major media storm of the 20th century. Pressure grew every day. Edward was told he must give up Wallis to keep the crown, but he refused. He didn't compromise. He didn't search for a middle ground. On December 11th, 1936, he abdicated, and he declared, "I cannot carry on the burden of responsibility and do my duty as king without the woman I love." It was a moment that permanently changed the history of the British monarchy, and it made Wallis Simpson the target of relentless blame. For decades, Wallis was portrayed as a manipulator, the woman who stole a king. But that perspective is far too simple. The truth is, Wallis never wanted Edward to give up his throne. She understood the cost of that decision more clearly than anyone. Edward didn't abdicate because of Wallis. He abdicated because of himself, because he had never wanted the responsibility that came with being king. Wallis' power did not lie in forcing him to act. It lay in her refusal to change who she was, even when pressured by an entire empire. She was strong. She was clear. She held her identity firmly. And that stability made Edward feel safe, a feeling the throne never offered him. But like all forms of soft power, it came with a painful price. Wallis and Edward lived together for 35 years, but they lived in exile far from England, and almost completely removed from the royal family. Wallis once wrote, "They say I controlled him, but he chose that path long before I arrived." She may have been right. The story of Wallis Simpson is not simply about forbidden love. It is the story of a woman misunderstood by her time, and of a single decision that changed the future of the British monarchy. But more deeply, it is a reminder: women who dare to live differently are often the women history must revisit and eventually call by their true name.